The moment my sister looked down at my newborn daughter and said, "So you really went through with that name after what I did?" I realized this was never about confusion, it was about control. She wanted everyone in the family to believe I copied her, even though I had spent my entire pregnancy talking about that name long before her babies were even born. What hurt the most was not the argument itself. It was watching someone I loved twist the story so completely that people actually started questioning whether I had done something wrong. I am 35 years old, and after years of infertility struggles and to miscarriages that nearly broke me emotionally, I finally became a mother last September. My husband, Ethan, and I had been trying for almost 6 years. By the time I got pregnant with our daughter, I had already reached the point where I stopped buying baby clothes because I was terrified of getting attached to hope again. Every doctor appointment felt like a test I was scared to fail. Every ultrasound left me holding my breath until I heard a heartbeat. Pregnancy was not magical for me, it was terrifying. My older sister, Vanessa, was 38 at the time, and somehow she got pregnant only a few months after I did. Growing up, Vanessa had always been the louder one between us. She was charismatic, dramatic, funny, and the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly make everything about herself without even trying. People loved her energy, I loved her too. But being her younger sister often felt like standing in the shadow of a spotlight that never turned off. Still, I was genuinely excited that we were pregnant together. It felt special. We spent hours texting about cravings, nursery colors, swollen feet, and all the weird things pregnancy does to your body. For a while, it actually brought us closer again after years of only seeing each other during holidays and birthdays. Very early into my pregnancy, I told Vanessa exactly what I planned to name my daughter. Our mother had passed away from breast cancer almost 12 years earlier, and losing her devastated both of us. Her name was Cynthia Loren, but growing up, our dad always called her Coco as a nickname. That nickname became part of our family history. It carried warmth, comfort, memories. I knew long before I even got pregnant that if I ever had a daughter, I wanted to honor our mother somehow. At the same time, Ethan was incredibly close to his own mother, Corinne, who practically treated me like her second daughter. So one evening while Ethan and I were sitting on the couch tossing around baby names, it suddenly clicked. Cynthia Corinne. The initials were perfect, and Coco naturally worked as a nickname. The moment I said it out loud, I started crying. Ethan immediately loved it too. I talked about the name constantly after that. My sister knew, my friends knew, our entire family knew. I had custom blankets made with Coco stitched across them in soft pink thread. I ordered wooden nursery signs. I even had a little bracelet with the name engraved on it because after everything we had gone through to get pregnant, I wanted to hold on to every tiny piece of joy. Vanessa reacted positively at first. She told me the name was beautiful and emotional. But whenever I asked her what she planned to name her own baby, she would grin and say it was a surprise. She insisted she and her husband wanted to keep it private until birth because they did not want opinions from anyone. That seemed fair enough, plenty of people do that. What none of us knew was that Vanessa was secretly pregnant with twins. She somehow managed to hide it from the entire family for months. Looking back now, I honestly think she enjoyed the secrecy because she loved dramatic reveals. She treated life like a reality show sometimes. Everything had to be bigger, louder, or more shocking than necessary. In August, about a month before my due date, Vanessa went into labor. Ethan and I rushed to the hospital expecting to meet our nephew. Instead, we walked into complete chaos. My dad was crying. My aunt was screaming. Nurses were wheeling bassinets around. And suddenly Vanessa announced with the biggest smile on her face that she had actually been carrying twins the entire time. Everyone lost their minds. I remember standing there stunned while Ethan laughed beside me because it honestly was shocking. Then Vanessa introduced the babies, a boy and a girl, Cole and Letty. At first, I thought the names were adorable. Then I paused for half a second because together they sounded suspiciously close to Cynthia. Not identical, obviously, but enough to make me raise an eyebrow internally. Still, I never said anything because honestly, I assumed it was intentional. I thought maybe she also wanted to honor Mom in her own way, and I found that sweet. Not once during that hospital visit did Vanessa mention my daughter's name. Not once did she say, "Hey, maybe now you should reconsider Coco because these names are kind of similar." Nothing. She smiled while opening gifts, that literally had Coco embroidered on them because people had already bought baby items for my daughter months earlier. She saw the personalized diaper bag sitting next to my chair in the hospital room. She knew exactly what name I was still planning to use. Then my daughter was born 3 weeks later. The second they placed her in my arms, every painful thing I had gone through to get there suddenly felt worth surviving. She had a tiny button nose, dark hair, and the loudest cry I had ever heard in my life. Ethan kissed my forehead while crying harder than I was. It was the happiest moment I have ever experienced. And yes, we named her Cynthia Corinne. We called her Coco from the very first day. For about 24 hours, everything felt perfect. Then Vanessa showed up at the hospital. I could tell immediately something was off. She barely looked at the baby before saying, "Wow, you actually used it." At first I honestly thought she meant the nickname Coco because maybe she suddenly realized how similar it sounded to her twins' names. I laughed awkwardly and reminded her that I had been planning this name forever. But Vanessa crossed her arms and said, "It is just weird now, don't you think? Cole, Letty, and Coco, they practically all share the same name." The room got painfully quiet. Ethan tried to smooth things over by joking that cousins having similar names was not exactly a national emergency. But Vanessa did not laugh. Instead, she started talking about how confusing holidays would become and how people would mix the kids up. Then she dropped the line that changed everything. "Well, my babies were born first." I remember staring at her because the implication was so obvious. She genuinely believed giving birth first somehow gave her ownership over the family naming territory, as if I had stolen something from her despite the fact that she had known my plan for months. After that day, things became increasingly uncomfortable. At family gatherings, Vanessa kept bringing it up constantly. She would laugh and tell people, "Can you believe she still used that name after hearing mine?" Sometimes she said it jokingly, but there was always an edge underneath it. Other times she was outright passive-aggressive. If someone complimented Coco's name, Vanessa would immediately jump in and remind everyone that her twins came first. One afternoon at our dad's house, I overheard her telling my cousin that she could never imagine copying another mother's baby name because it felt desperate. I stood frozen in the hallway listening to her rewrite reality in real time. I confronted her later in the kitchen while everyone else was outside. I asked her directly why she was acting like I blindsided her when she had known my daughter's name throughout my entire pregnancy. Vanessa shrugged and said she thought I would naturally change my mind once she revealed her twins' names. I actually laughed because I could not believe what I was hearing. I told her people are not mind readers. If she had concerns, she should have said something months ago instead of expecting me to abandon a deeply meaningful name without a conversation. Vanessa rolled her eyes and said, "Well, most reasonable people would have pivoted." That word stuck with me, pivoted, as if my daughter's name was a marketing strategy instead of something tied to grief, love, and family history. The situation became even more ridiculous because our extended family started dividing into quiet camps. Some relatives privately told me Vanessa was being irrational. Others awkwardly avoided the topic altogether. A few people admitted the names were confusing when said together quickly, which honestly was fair. I never denied that part, but confusion was never the real issue. The real issue was that Vanessa expected me to surrender something important to keep her comfortable. Meanwhile, she acted like the victim every chance she got. At Thanksgiving, things finally exploded. We were all sitting around the dining table while the babies were in high chairs nearby making a complete mess with mashed sweet potatoes. My aunt asked how we ended up with 3 kids in the family whose names sounded connected, and before I could even open my mouth, Vanessa dramatically sighed and said, "Because somebody could not let go of a name after I used mine first." I felt my entire body tense. Ethan squeezed my knee under the table, silently begging me not to engage, but I was exhausted. I had spent months staying quiet to keep the peace while Vanessa publicly painted me as selfish. So I calmly put down my fork and said, "You mean the name I told you about before your twins were even born?" The entire table went silent. Vanessa immediately got defensive and said her twins' names were different enough that she assumed I would realize it became too similar. I asked her why she never once communicated that directly if it mattered so much. She had no answer. Instead, she started insisting that everyone naturally understood unspoken social rules around baby names. That argument would have almost made sense if I had copied her, but I had not. I had literally announced my daughter's name months before her babies existed outside the womb. Then my dad, who had mostly stayed out of the drama until that point, quietly said something that shifted the entire room. He looked at Vanessa and said, You knew your sister planned to honor your mother. You had every opportunity to say something before your babies were born. Vanessa's face changed instantly. For the first time, she looked embarrassed instead of angry. Dinner ended awkwardly after that, but the tension did not disappear. A few days later, Vanessa sent me a long text accusing me of humiliating her in front of the family. She claimed I made her look selfish and manipulative. Reading it honestly felt surreal because she had spent months publicly criticizing me while expecting me to absorb it silently. Still, despite everything, part of me started doubting myself. I am not naturally confrontational, I hate conflict. The constant tension wore me down emotionally, especially while adjusting to new motherhood. Some nights I sat awake holding Coco while wondering if changing her legal name would solve everything. I considered swapping the order to Corinne Cynthia so the nickname would disappear. I even opened the paperwork online once. But every time I looked at my daughter, the idea felt wrong. Her name fit her perfectly. More importantly, I realized changing it would not actually fix the deeper issue. Vanessa would simply learn that if she applied enough pressure, she could force people to rearrange their lives around her emotions. The final turning point happened unexpectedly during my niece and nephew's first birthday party. One of Vanessa's friends asked where I got the nickname Coco from because she thought it was adorable. Before I could answer, my dad spoke up from across the room. That was my nickname for their mother. He said she named her daughter after Grandma. The room softened immediately after that. People smiled, someone called it beautiful. And for the first time in nearly a year, I watched Vanessa realize other people did not see the situation the way she did. Because when stripped down to the actual facts, the truth was simple. I never copied her. I never tried to steal attention from her twins. I never demanded she change her babies' names. All I did was keep the name I had lovingly chosen long before anyone knew what her children would be called. Eventually, the drama faded because most people got tired of entertaining it. Life moved on. The kids grew older. Ironically, the children themselves never cared about the similarities at all. Cole adored Coco. Letty followed her around constantly during family gatherings. The only person still bothered by the names was Vanessa. These days, our relationship is polite but distant. I still love her because she is my sister, but something shifted permanently after this whole situation. I realized how often she expected the world to orbit around her feelings while dismissing everyone else's. As for my daughter, she is now the happiest little girl I know. She introduces herself proudly as Coco to literally everyone she meets. Grocery store cashiers know her, neighbors know her. Half the town probably knows her because she talks nonstop. And every single time I hear her say her name with that huge grin on her face, I know I made the right decision. Because her name was never about competition. It was about love.